Hi, good afternoon, good morning, good welcome. My name is Cheryl Vercammen and I'm the Mayor of Marine City, and this is a monthly show that we do called the Mayor Minute, part of our Government Today series here on CTV, filmed in beautiful St. Clair, Michigan. Today I have a guest with me. Her name is Megan Pearce, and she is the Treasurer and Finance Director of the City of Marine City. Welcome, Megan.
Thanks. Thank you.
So we're gonna talk about all things finance, and we are going to do it on a level that I understand. I understand. So Megan, obviously, welcome to the program. And can you give us a little bit of your background? Like, where'd you come from?
Sure. I worked for the City of Warren for 16 years. I worked in their Parks and Recreation Department, then transferred to be a police and fire and EMS dispatcher for a few years, and then I moved into their treasurer's department, and then I transferred here over to Marine City. I have a bachelor's from Walsh College, and that's my background.
Nice, very nice.
Thanks.
So how is our city doing financially?
The city has very healthy fund balances. It's important to note why it's important to have healthy fund balances. So basically what that does is it mitigates your current risks and your future risks. So for example, if a city were to incur revenue shortfalls or unanticipated expenditures, by you having these healthy fund balances, it allows you to be able to support those unanticipations by not having to borrow short-term cash. So we, as a whole, all of our funds, we have a general fund, a water and sewer fund, cemetery, local major street funds, a retirement fund for actual pensions, and for the retiree health care. All of them are far above what our auditor would want us to be at and what the state minimum requirement is for percentages. They're all healthy, yes. I think the city got into this financial position because they had a lot of strong financial leadership, and that wasn't just from a treasurer or finance director, it wasn't just from a city manager. It's a combination of everyone, from the city manager and the commission working together to be responsible, to having somebody that we currently have in our office that does a fantastic job with getting grants to help the city.
Which is Michelle.
Yes,
Yep.
she does a wonderful
Michelle
job.
Goodrich. Yep, she does. Great job.
And we have really a lot of department heads that just care about keeping the city in a financially sound position. We have a great police chief that works within his budget. We have a DPW superintendent that
Mike
works
Ettridge.
very diligently to make sure that we can support everything by being as responsible as possible. And what also that entails is we constantly go out and bid for the best prices on goods and services. We stay within our budgeted limits, and a lot of times, year after year, we've come in under budget, and it's worked out well for the city.
Yeah,
So.
that's one of the things that I've noticed too. And I always say that I am like the least political person. I never really got into politics until I decided to jump into city commission.
Yes.
And then the mayor position came up, and which I knew nothing about, but I jumped into that too.
You're doing great. You're doing fine.
So I'm kind of learning as we go. But one of the things that I noticed is that Chief Heslop, runs a great police department. He loves what he does.
Yeah.
I interviewed him last month, and you could see that he loves what he does, and
Yes.
he is very concerned about keeping the city and his budget whole,
Yes.
right? And Mike Ettridge does a fantastic job with the DPW.
Yes.
And that is, I never realized how much a DPW does for a city. I
Yes.
mean, you want to talk about being the heart of a city. That's the DPW.
It
I
is.
mean, the infrastructure, which is your sewers and your water, and I'm sure I'm missing a bunch.
He does all your
Roads,
our
parks.
buildings, our grounds.
Right.
He does all our roads, our streets, everything. So the actual maintaining of the city's infrastructure and everything that we use to run our infrastructure, our buildings, and our beautiful parks that we have, everything is ran through our DPW department.
Yeah.
So everything that you love and enjoy, whether it's from fresh water or going to the parks, everything is handled through DPW.
Right.
And with Chief Heslip, obviously he handles the safety of our city, and our city is a very low crime city. We don't have, a lot of major incidents here of any kind. We have a very good relationship with police and residents that's well respected, and that just doesn't happen overnight. You need strong leadership to have those things happen. So I think both of them are doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, I agree. So getting back to financials, what are some of our citizens' concerns regarding their taxes?
Well, I think whether it's you, I, or anyone really, everybody thinks taxes are too high, no matter what state you're in, no matter what city you're in, no matter if you're paying the state taxes, the city taxes, or federal taxes. Nobody really likes taxes.
Wait till you own a business.
Yes. So I think what's important though to understand is Marine City does not, although some of our neighboring communities, we don't have additional millages for the city beyond our operating millage. So what that means is for some of your other local communities, they might have a millage specifically designated for their fire department or for their police department or for roads, their library, things of that nature, their parks and recreation. Marine City does not have any additional millages beyond the operating that everyone else has, and that's what we use to fund basically everything in our city besides water and sewer. So our buildings, our parks, every single department, every single service, everything is paid out of there. Even our garbage collection, our street lighting, every single thing that the city incurs expenditure-wise is paid out of that general fund, except for water and sewer.
Is that good or bad? I mean, is it better for a city? And again, I'm so intelligent on this subject. Is it better for a city to have separate millages for each department, or are we doing the right thing by doing how we do it?
I think every city's needs are what really kind of drive a best answer on that. So I think any city would tell you it is more helpful, obviously, to have more millages. You have more of a pot to collect from. But also it really just depends on what are your expenditures and what are your revenues. If you have a high revenue city, it's probably not the most necessary to have those separate millages to support those specific functions. But in Marine City, we're doing well with the operating millage. Again, would it hurt by anyone to have additional funds? No. But do I think that being, again, fiscally sound and responsible can help kind of steer away from having to have those in some situations? Yes. But is it going to be a one size fits all for every community? No. No. Some really do need those additional millages to support their functions for sure.
Yeah. So, we're always encouraging people to move into our city, right?
Yes.
So when someone purchases a home, why do the property taxes increase a lot when somebody purchases a house?
So what that's called is the Headley Act, or what that stems from is the Headley Act. And this is not a circumstance that's limited to Marine City. This is a statewide issue that I think almost every treasurer would want not only their residents, but any person who's looking to buy a house to have this information. So when you're looking to buy a home, the first thing you should do before you ever enter into any kind of purchasing agreement is look at the house that you're looking at and look at their taxable value and what's called their SEV value, which is their state equalized value. There are two figures on your tax form. If you see that those two figures, if the state equalized value is several tens of thousands higher than the taxable value, what the Headley Act says is when you go into your first full tax year of ownership, your house taxes have to uncap, and you need to pay taxes on the true value of the house. So what that means is, at a minimum, if you say, for instance, that the taxable value is $20,000, but the state equalized value is $70,000, That Headley Act says we need to at least bring your taxable value, which is what you pay taxes on, up to that $70,000. Now, there's inflationary things that go into that and actual market circumstances that may make it go a little bit less, but most people do not have any knowledge of the Headley Act and how it impacts when they buy a house. So you buy a house in August, you move in, you say, oh, the taxes are $1,200 for the year, not so bad. Then all of a sudden the next year comes in July and you get your new bill and it's now your first full year and it uncaps. It now goes up to, let's say, $2,100. And now your escrow account, because most people have escrow accounts and mortgages, didn't have enough money in it. So now they're going to need more money for planning ahead, more money for what they have already paid out, and then you're going to be paying more to the city, and it's never going to change. It's not going to go $1,000 less at any point. You'll have only slight marginal increases after that, but it is so important that you talk to a realtor, again, not just from Marine City, for any place in Michigan, that you look at that taxable value and the state equalized value to kind of get an idea of where you're going to be. So that's something that Marine City, you might see a few $100s of an increase, but in like the city where I mentioned I came from, we could routinely see people coming in with, a $2,000 increase in their taxes. And that's a huge, obviously, burden to a lot of families that weren't expecting that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's good advice, to look at those two numbers on the tax form, which everybody has the right to see. It should actually be part of the deal. Yeah. And most communities do have access to what's called BSNA online. I would say what is BSNA?
BSAonline.com. Okay. So that is a company that lists most of the municipalities' real estate information for each of their houses online. So if you went to BSNA online and you searched Marine City right now, you would be able to see any address in the city. You could see what they pay in taxes, what their house is worth, and for most communities, they utilize that software program. If the city doesn't have it, I would still reach out to them and see if you can get the information over the phone before you purchase a house, or see if they use any kind of other software program that you could see on the internet, for sure.
Right. So I think one of the important things that you mentioned is that it's just not Marine City. It's the state of Michigan. It's everybody. It's
every single city, and it affects, I've seen it happen to a lot of different people, even friends of mine, family of mine that don't know anything about it. And you kind of get sticker shock sometimes when you get the tax bill and you're not expecting that to happen. So definitely look into that for sure.
Because the taxes do have to catch up. To what's current. So Proposal A was passed in 1994, and you mentioned a little bit about the Headley Act in 1974 and how it affects local taxes. Yes. So what ended up happening also as part of that Headley Act is the city charter in Marine City right now says we can charge 20 mills per residence. But if the residents were to look on their tax bills right now, they would see for the 2020 summer, we only charged 16.1817. And the reason why we weren't allowed to charge the full 20 is because the Headley Act wants us to basically take into consideration any inflationary changes. So they do every single year, they look at the inflation for each specific city or county, depending on where the taxes are stemming from. And they say, okay, well, you're not going to be able to charge the 20 because you had this much in inflation or this much in other economic factors. So you're only going to be able to assess this 16.187. I think the year prior to this, we were around 16.4. The year prior to that, we were at 16.7. And so it's gradually coming down. Now, it doesn't mean that necessarily the city's making less money, because the reason they're lessening that millage is because they're saying you have higher overall taxable value to gain funds from. However, if the taxable value was still being charged at the full 20 mills, there would be a lot more to work with versus the 16.1 for sure. So that's where we run into where the Headley Act impacts how much each city can actually charge. The Headley Act is superseding the city charters and what they say that they can charge. Where did that come from, the Headley Act?
I don't know.
1974, so must have been,
So
somebody must have sued somebody.
I don't know. I think I think maybe at that time, I don't know how we were as an economy and growth, but perhaps there were too many communities that had too much growth, and it was probably severely impacting their residents to have a lot higher tax bills. That would be my best guess. I think that was kind of a way to reduce down, as much of a financial strain that some communities could be putting on their residents. So, I mean, it's got pros to it for residents for sure, but also it's kind of tricky to work with as a government because you don't know where you're going to be at necessarily tax-wise till the following year. You could do some pretty fair projections, but actual figures you're not going to know until you see right around this time actually when we get how much they're going to let us charge, and then that will come to you actually here in about 2 weeks for your commission meeting.
Yeah. Let's talk about the road millage. So there was a road millage in 2018 that did not pass.
Right.
And because when people talk about, increasing taxes, I think right away, the minute you say, oh, we're going to increase taxes, it's just no.
Right.
Without really understanding how much that tax increase would be.
Right.
And what it goes for.
Yes.
I mean, the big thing in Marine City right now is our roads. Everyone is complaining about the roads and the sidewalks and the money's got to come from somewhere.
Yes.
So
they, at the time, by reading the resolution and what was put forth to the voters, they had averaged, it would have been, they wanted a 3.29 mil increase. So what that means is they would have charged $3.29 per $1,000 of taxable value per house.
Okay.
So if you had, let's say, a $50,000 taxable valued house, you would have paid about $165 additional in tax money for the year. So it's by no means
$165.
$165
a year
for the $50,000 of taxable value. So is that a small amount for most people? No, most people wouldn't think it's very small. However, what that was going to do for the 5 years, it was going to raise about $1.6 million, and they had strict limits to use those funds as part of what they were voting on, specifically for infrastructure and roads. So $1.6 million in a 5-year turnaround time would have definitely been a lot of money to put towards your roads, and you would have had better roads in certain areas. So, it's, again, everyone's financial situation is different. We all can understand that. For some people, $165 would be a lot. For others, it wouldn't be that big of a lifestyle change. However, what's important to note is if we want to get these roads fixed, the money, as you said, has to come from somewhere. And even though the city is healthy, there's no secret on that. It's put in an audit every single year and that we get done. It still doesn't mean that we have responsibilities first and foremost that have to get taken care of first. So if more roads want to get done than what we're currently doing, it probably will be something that should be entertained in the future is to definitely look at either superseding that Headley Act with a vote like they did, or looking to raise funds even for maybe a road millage. It's not something that anyone's discussed at the moment, but if that is something that the city residents feel as a whole that they want to see greater progress towards, that's probably where we're going to have to go. Yeah.
Well, the way I look at it, and if you have good roads, good sidewalks, doesn't it kind of increase your property value? I mean, isn't it something that you look at as a homeowner? If I'm thinking about buying a house and I've got just a mess of a sidewalk in front of me, if I put that house on the market, that's one of the first things that I would look at as a potential purchaser is, well,
The sidewalks themselves are actually the residents' responsibilities, and they do that from year to year, zone to zone, as to who they're going to work with on. even though it's a resident's responsibility, the city pays the cost up front to the contractor, and we give you a year interest-free to pay back any of that money, which obviously if you went in and got a contractor yourself, they're not going to give you a year to not pay anything towards the work that they've done. And beyond that, they charge 6% per year in interest for the next 2 years to pay it off. So most people do like that program because they can have nice sidewalks,
Right.
And have a year to pay for the work at no additional cost to them. But that's just the sidewalks themselves. You start getting into this, where the city's responsibility is a lot of times where you have the portion of driveway that's right off the road. That is something that a lot of cities do fix on their own. But the roads, yes. I mean, if I'm moving into a community and my street is, got black tar everywhere and cracks and potholes, it's not something that I'm going to feel like is going to increase my value, nor is it something I'm going to want to go out there and ride my bike on or rollerblade or walk my dog. Or there's a lot of things that kind of do deter people from wanting to be in that area.
Yeah. I just wanted to, to get a good explanation about that because, like I said, the immediate response is no increase. But, when you're talking, sometimes it's $20.
Right.
For
per 1 mil, that in the prior, the road millage that we were talking about, that was 3.29 mils. So, and that was $165. So let's just say $50 per 1 mil. If you voted 1 mil of road funds for every house, it would be around a $50 increase. Depending on their taxable value.
Yeah. That's, how many cups of coffee at Tim Hortons? You would know.
I would know, yes. The Tim Hortons right here in the city.
Right here. So we talked about, did we talk about what is a millage?
No.
Okay.
So a millage is a tax that's levied on property. And where I think could be some more room for discussion is a lot of people think, well, I pay, we'll go back to the $1,200 in taxes, and they think that the city gets all $1,200, and that's just not true. When you pay taxes on your property, you pay mills towards the county. You pay mills towards veterans programs, seniors programs, libraries. You pay it for the local schools, the college, the state education fund. You pay it also towards special education. There's a lot of different millages that you pay out towards multiple different entities. So even though I collect all the funds for Marine City, I have to disperse the funds to the county, to the state, to our general fund. It's not just, I paid $1,200 and it all went to Marine City. That's not what happens at all. So the mill is a tax levied on a property, and 1 mill is equivalent to $1 per every $1,000 of taxable value. That's how we calculate out how much you actually pay in taxes.
So, yeah, okay.
And something else we get about the taxes that gets asked in our office is, why is the summer tax bill so much higher than the winter? And really what
why is that?
What that comes down to is because you're paying these different entities, whether it's the county, the state, or the city. We all have different fiscal years that operate in different months. So the summer, you're paying almost everyone their millage in its entirety, whereas in the winter, we're only sending out a small amount to the county for their veterans, library, drug enforcement programs. They're the only ones that are collecting during that time, whereas everybody else is operating on similar months of fiscal years. So that summer tax bill, unfortunately, you got to send most of it at once. That's why that works that way.
We can't take all that money, divide it in two.
No.
That would be very simple.
I think you wouldn't find a treasurer out there that wouldn't like for it to be streamlined some way.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, our hands are tied with all the different governments that are involved. That's just unfortunately government. And that's how we do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
If anyone has a proposal that will work for the state, be my guest.
Be my guest. Does a millage increase every year?
So if your taxable value goes up, the amount you're going to pay in taxes is going to go up. If a millage is increased to go through, like we were talking about with the roads that were proposed early on in 2018, then yes, you're going to more than likely pay more in taxes. Also, something to think about is if the property values are going down, then you're probably not going to pay as much in taxes. And likewise, if a millage isn't renewed or they renew it for a lesser amount, you're going to pay less in taxes. So the millage amount increasing or decreasing is really dependent upon where all those other external factors are at. So generally speaking right now, do you see an increase overall in your taxes, not necessarily the millage amount, but the taxes as a whole? Yes, because our economies have been steadily increasing since the housing collapse that we had back in '08. But do I think that's going to probably last forever? No, I think we're going to probably the next 2 or 3 years going to start seeing them come down a little bit. I think we're going to about to hit our breaking point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of think so too. We talked about that. Streets and sidewalks, repair costs, grants.
Yes.
Can you explain to us what is a grant and where it comes from and how it helps the city?
So grants can come from really anywhere. They could come from even though we call it a grant, it could be something as small as a donation from a resident. It could be somewhere from a nonprofit. It could be grants that are allocated from the state or the federal governments. The grants are helpful to any community because you don't want to call it free money, but let's just be realistic. It is free money that you didn't have to come up with out of your own budget. And that's the reality of a grant situation. So it helps these communities because if you can get grants and you can take on all these projects and fund them through grants, it's less that the city has had to pay out of its own funds and less that it's got to try to raise from taxes through its residents. So there are a lot of fantastic grant programs out there from all of those different places that we had mentioned. The city of Marine City has gotten grants from this year alone from nonprofits and from the federal government. We've got several in the works still that we're trying to raise more additional funds for. But that's how we've got actually a lot of our park projects for this year is through multiple grants that we've been awarded. So it's great to have that because it's rewarding for both sides. You know, you get funds from the state or the federal or from a nonprofit. Then those entities can show off what these communities were able to do with the funds they provided them, and like the musical parklet we put in last year. The kids love going over there. They love going and playing all those different music features. We're going to be doing a lot of enhancements to Mariner Park upcoming this summer because of grants that we've received.
So the grant at Mariner Park, that was the Christopher
Reeves
and Dana Reeves, him and his wife. Obviously, Christopher Reeves is the actor Superman.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And how did we get that? I mean, how did we know about it? Because that's obviously a nonprofit grant. Yes,
this, as you mentioned, Michelle is the person in our office. She's been going out there and getting these grants, and I don't know how she knows about all the grants. She's just very skilled, and we're very lucky to have her. I think that she's got a big focus. She's heard from residents that they want accessibility improvements. That's what they want. So that's what's so great about the people we have working for us. It's not just that they're just there doing their day-to-day, mundane tasks that maybe aren't the most enjoyable. It's that they actually listen to what their residents want because they care. And that's probably something that I would definitely assume that she's heard more than once and felt, let's do a search for what we can find. And she did, and she applied for it and got it. And we were only one of, if I recall, 50 or
I know,
in the whole country.
Not much in the entire
amazing.
Country,
right?
And I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah,
we got a grant from Superman.
Right.
I mean, seriously,
right? For
we
sure,
got a grant from Superman.
So I think when you have those people that strive to make their own communities better, being that she is a resident in the city as well, and has family and friends here and works for the city, you put in that extra effort to go above and beyond and find these people and find these organizations that are willing to meet what kind of goals you're looking for to accomplish in your city. So it was a great thing that she's gone, and she's gotten several of them, and I couldn't be happier on her performance with it. I think she does a fantastic job.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Speaking of city offices, what is the best way to pay a bill? I know it's been difficult, because the office has been, the doors are locked, and we've been, the offices have been closed, which is going to change because we're going to be moving very shortly, and,
yes.
Or I should say you guys are going to be moving very shortly.
Yep.
But even when the office is open, do you have to go in and pay a bill? I know some people like to.
No, a lot of times, I would say probably the person that comes in the most to pay a bill is probably one that's not the most technological savvy. A lot of times those are our senior citizens. They've never, had to really do too much on the computers or trying to make payments by phone. But no, you don't have to come in the city office at all to make a payment. We don't discourage you if you need any kind of assistance to make a payment. Even with our doors being closed, everyone's been putting payments in the drop box that's on the outside of the building, and
which is completely secure.
Yep, it's on security camera footage, 24 hours a day. Also, what's important to note about that is the girls a lot of times in the office have been sending out receipts because people, they like their copy to show that they've paid for something, which is obviously fair, and they send it back to them in the mail. So it's really, even though they haven't actually been able to exchange hand to hand, the process itself has not really changed at all. So they can utilize the Dropbox, they can also pay by phone, and they can pay over online. Any of those three methods that they can utilize and shouldn't have any issues. We use a company called Point and Pay. A lot of the communities do, and they're pretty good at being real good company to use for payments. Don't really have any issues.
So to pay by computer, what do you have to do?
So you could go to the cityofmarincity.org and you would link to the treasurer's page from there.
I think it says how to pay a bill or pay a bill.
Something to that effect. We changed it a few months ago, so I'd have to go back and look at the exact verbiage. But it does say you can pay your tax bill or your water bill, which is the majority of what payments people are making, online. And it links you right into your address. So you just basically select what you are wanting to pay. The only thing you really need is your account number most times. You want to either you're going to have to search it by address or look at your actual hard copy bill, which will have it on there. For the taxes, it's just a series of numbers that start with 02. And for the water bills, it usually starts with 2 letters followed by a series of numbers. So you will need those to make your payments. Definitely for over the phone, you're going to need those.
Yeah. So once you get that set up, does it lock it in there?
I believe there are stored features on each one of them. I don't 100% know about the online. I think you can do a username. I'll have to go back and look at that.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to put in like the same information every single time. Something we did implement is the phones. Actually, we didn't used to have that before I started. Like you can now go on there, and then they have a line specifically for Marine City that you can call to make your payments. And the reason we did that is because a lot of the residents were calling in wanting to give their credit card information over the phone, which is really not a best practice for any company. It's not a good idea to be giving your credit card information or even your banking information over a phone. So that's something to keep in mind. Any company that's asking you to do that, try to see if there's an alternate method somehow that you can pay them, whether it be go online or just send a check or something to that effect, because it's just keeping your information safe. So
speaking of paying bills and all that stuff, obviously the new city offices are
coming along,
being vinyl sided as we speak. So for those people out, I always say out in TV land, that don't know where the new Marine City offices are going to be, it's they're going to be. It's the old gym that is between Pepe's Pizza and Wonton Palace on Parker, right across from Home Depot or Food Depot.
Yep.
And there's the sign that the Marine City electronic sign that's by Marathon Gas Station on Parker is going to get moved in front of the city offices soon.
Yes.
And so it's going to be a blue building, right? Beautiful.
I think.
Yeah,
I believe so.
I drove as on my way here. I actually glanced at it, and it's a beautiful blue siding. So it's going to be a blue building, and I'm excited because it gets us off Water Street. I think it's just an easier accessibility. Have our own parking lot, and what I think is kind of cool. Is that all of our city services are on one street now.
Yes.
You've got the police department, you've got the DPW, you got the library, you got the city offices, you've got the fire department, and it's all on Parker.
Yeah, the new address of the building will be 260 South Parker, and it is in close proximity to our police department, our Department of Public Works. So yes, you could go and get all your essential services there. The Dropbox, by last discussions with Mike, who's our DPW superintendent, I believe it will be on the sidewalk there at the entrance of the new building. So what's nice about that is you will be able to drive up, and you won't even have to get out of your car. You could literally just put your your payment right in the Dropbox, or your permit application, whatever it is you're trying to get into the city for us to look at. You won't even have to get out of your car to accomplish that task. So again, accessibility, especially with handicapped individuals, that's something that will be a nice feature for them, that they don't have to try to worry about, how they're going to accomplish making their payments or turning something into the city. So that would be something nice for them.
And I'm sure that'll be on camera as well.
Yes.
We're having obviously a nice, I don't want to say state-of-the-art security system, but it's going to be a nice system there. Cameras everywhere. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Good. We talked about that. How is we talked about DPW. How is our DPW?
They're great. As we mentioned earlier, they handle a lot of responsibility, and they used to have a lot more hands to handle all of their tasks. Unfortunately, when everything happened with the market crash, they had to let go of some people as they retired. They didn't refill those vacancies. And I think it's been a need in the last couple of years, a definite need to get at least one other body in there full time so that we can handle all these projects that they have on their plate and the operations of the city as a whole. So a lot of that stems from the projects themselves that we've gotten a significant amount of grants for. DPW is the man for the job, and they're the ones that are going to be tackling all these things. So between Mariner Park, we're working on the new city hall. They're helping with things with that. They're doing a kayak launch. They have, they handle our water and sewer project. They're doing a significant amount of things. The city is looking at doing a marina. They're in discussions for that. There's a lot of things they have to do. So they are going to be getting another full-timer added to there, so hopefully that will help them out. But yeah, they have a lot of responsibility for the maintenance, upkeep, and just keeping the city running.
Right. And then it's also the extras too, right? I mean, you got, flowers. Yeah. And I don't understand why, there's some people that just don't like the fact that we spend a little bit of money on flowers and watering, and everybody comments about how nice the city looks. I mean, it does look nice,
I don't think that Marine City too they're not the only ones that pay for flower waterers. They're not. The city I came from, they had a flower waterer that had their own gator cart they went around in, and you're right, it does bring an aesthetically pleasing visual to your city, and a lot of people enjoy it. It looks good.
The banners,
Yeah.
You know, we're going to be getting the high school banners put up
Yeah.
pretty soon, which,
Yep.
you know.
And they're going to handle
That's a lot
that.
of work.
Yes.
That's a lot of work to be up on those trucks and cherry pickers and whatever else you need to do it and
Right.
take them down.
Right. They run
You
all
know.
of our parks, all of our beaches, every single thing that's affiliated with it. You know, whether it's bringing in sand, whether it's stocking the bathrooms, cleaning the bathrooms, making sure that you have somebody on watch to watch for, you know, your residents for safety concerns, making sure the parks are in good, that the play structure equipment is in good working condition. I mean, the grass is the grass cut. Every single thing really that you see in the city has almost DPW has a hand in.
Right.
So they definitely have a lot of responsibility, and we're very fortunate that we have very hard workers, again, that just care about the city, and a lot of them live here, their kids go to school here, they were raised themselves in Marine City, so they take a lot of pride in keeping the city, you know, in great good standing.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I mentioned to Police Chief Heslop on the last conversation that I had with him last month is, you know, I like having the DPW around too, because they're always around the city and they are the eyes and ears of a city.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you know, if something is going on or if they see something, you know, they get it, they report it. You know, it's another set of eyes everywhere. See somebody, you know, being silly in a park, you know,
Right.
You know, I'm sure that they would say something.
Yes.
Mike Itrich actually gave me a little list, and you had mentioned Mariner Park, right? Installing the sidewalk around the park, a viewfinder, which is handicap accessible, and this is all part of
that. Yep.
And isn't this part of that?
The grant.
The grant,
Yep.
the Dana and Christopher Reed's
Yes.
grant, yeah. Fishing pad for handicapped people, installing a fish and waterfall posters, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
You know, so you can actually, if somebody's catching a fish, or if you see something, or if you've caught something and you're not sure what it is,
Right.
you know, the poster will be there. This project was funded by, you know, he said the Christopher and Dana Reed. The kayak launch, which is, we've been talking about that for well over a year. That was a grant from the Ralph C. Wilson that we had applied for. And we're also waiting on a little bit of DNR approval for that kayak launch. The musical parklet that's behind the library.
Yep.
Yeah, they're going to have additional landscaping and just some like finishing work on that. All the drinking fountains in town are now turned on, which is he wants everybody to know. The beach and the pavilion bathrooms will be opening soon. And then we're going out for bids for the water main replacement on 2 streets, Union Street, South William, replacing the water main on the road. The 2nd Street is South Main from Union to Marine Street, replacing the water main and doing some work there. And then we're also applying for the Cdbg Grant.
Yep.
To replace water mains and roads on 4 streets.
Which I believe is $1 million grant.
Yeah, I thought it was wasn't it 1.2 or something?
I haven't seen the exact figure. You
was
could be correct.
significant.
Yeah, it's a big grant.
Yeah, and that's a nice grant.
If we get it, yes.
What is Cdbg? Do you know? I don't want to put you on the spot.
It's community development, building. I got to think about the rest of it. It's community development. And
where's that come from?
You know, I think I don't know exactly where it comes from. When I worked even at Warren, they had their own person that handled like Cdbg. It was like its own separate department. So I couldn't tell you offhand where all that funnels in from. I'm sure it's probably more than one place, especially if they're giving grants that
But
significant.
it's not private. That's a government.
I don't recall. I don't recall which one it is. I don't.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. What are some of the things our citizens can do to lower their water bills?
So, use less water. No, and I say that because a lot of people, for 2 reasons. It's not your normal water usage that usually is the culprit. It's a lot of times sprinklers in the summertime that people just don't realize that They want to have that beautiful green grass, which I do too. I love it. But when I get the water bill, I'm very mad at myself that I want that green grass so bad. So if you do have sprinklers, try to water every other day, or try to water, if it's 80 degrees outside, it's probably not a good idea to turn on your sprinklers to run for an hour while it's that hot. So little things like that, obviously. But the bigger thing that people should know, or the trick, is a lot of times if you ever have a leak, I would say almost 90% of leaks are going to be stemming from a toilet. And everybody thinks, I'll know, I'll hear it.
You'll hear it, right.
And that is not true in any
That's
capacity. No. Sometimes, yes, you will hear it, but more times than not, it's not going to be something you're going to notice. And so if you even suspect you might have a water leak, what you should do is you take the lid off the back of the bowl and you put some colored food dye drops in there. And if that colored water seeps into the inside of that toilet bowl without you flushing, you have a leak in there. And
I did that.
Yes.
Yeah, because I had, I've got several toilets in my building, several. And my water bill was like, I was like, holy Toledo.
Yeah.
Did this go up? And we use a lot of water, and yeah, Michelle was like, did you look at your toilets? And I'm like, oh, I'm not hearing anything. I mean, I'm literally standing in my building listening all the time.
Right.
And she's like, no, try it. And I did. And the women's restroom had a leak. And I was like, there it is. And I did the blue dye. And it took a little bit,
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen right away. But what really disgruntles people is, again, they think they could hear it and they don't know that they can't. And then they get, a $400 or $500 water bill for a part that probably costs $30 had they known to replace it. And on top of that, I will say, since you mentioned having multiple toilets, if you have one that has a leak that you have to replace it, I mean, it's most times than not, if you got a toilet put in, you got more than one put in, and they were put in at the same time. So if one has gone, you might as well just go and buy a second part, because it's only a matter of time before the second one or the third one is going to be joining the unfortunate leaking club, and it's going to cost you more had you just not go and buy the part now and be done with it.
Yeah.
We do have software that does tip us off if it notices a very high excessive amount of use. So we do pretty good with letting people know, but again, it's
how do you let them know?
We send them notification through the mail, or we'll call them. If we have a phone number on file, we'll call them, let them know we've noticed high usage. And a lot of communities do have that. But again, how long does it take before you realize that? Usually a handful of months before you actually can see, oh wow, well, we did a reading 3 months later, and now this water usage is way higher than what it used to be. And we don't do any kind of leak adjustments or anything like that. So, what the bill you get is what you get. We will let you know if it's at a higher figure of usage. But again, it's not going to be like, oh, we know the next day there was 1 day of high usage. That's not how, unfortunately, anyone's going to be able to do it. So the toilets are usually, again, most times than not, if you have a leak, it's going to be from a toilet. But other than that, saving usage on your water, you just got to use less, unfortunately. That's the only way to do it.
Right. And so you had mentioned, the high water usage, like if it was, a leak or, whatever. So can that resident bring in their bill and say, look, in this set of months I was paying $400. Now all of a sudden it jumped to $900.
No.
I have a part that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah. So the city did used to do that. We used to have a leak adjustment policy. The problem was it was a program that was, you don't want to say getting abused. It was getting taken advantage of. There was a lot of repeat offenders who were coming in, and we had no way to decipher, that this scribbling on a notepad piece of paper was really a plumber that came out and fixed something. And that's not to say that everyone that came in didn't have a legitimate problem. There were definitely some legitimate problems. But we also would have situations where you go out of town for 6 months, you're a snowbird, and you've had you turned off your heat and your pipes burst and you don't have anybody doing any kind of maintenance and you don't think that's anything that you should do being out of town for 6 months. So you have a pipe that burst because you neglected to have it checked, and all of a sudden you have $4,000 of water bill that you want the city to pay for, and then it happens the following year, or somebody else has it happen. So the issue with that is, are there some people that needed the assistance? Yes. Where it becomes the burden to the city as a whole is because when you're giving out all these leak adjustments to 100 residents, let's say a year, or 200, whatever it may be, that's lost revenue. So what ends up happening is you then have to offset that lost revenue somehow. And so how does that usually happen? Water rate increases on everyone.
That everybody pays for the few that it happens to.
Yes, exactly. So it was a practice that year after year, when I came in, I saw that the amount that we were giving out in leak adjustments was in the tens of thousands of dollars, and it was steadily increasing. And it was not anything that was going to be coming down. So, and then you look at, again.
I was surprised to see how high it was.
Yeah.
Truly I was.
Yes.
I was like, that is a lot of money that I'm paying for. I'm a resident.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, do I understand that there are going to be some people that life happens and unfortunately they didn't know and they had serious leaks and it is a burden to them. I do understand that.
Right.
Unfortunately, we have to treat everyone the same.
Right.
And that's where we made I made the recommendation to the commission that we eliminate that policy, and we have.
And we did. Yeah. It happened to me.
Yep.
I had a leak. I paid dearly for that leak.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I'm not having it again.
Yeah.
No.
That is exactly right.
No.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of nice developments that are happening on Water Street, or hopefully. I think that these projects are going to be great for our city. And so when one of them is a condominium and retail development, she brought it up to us a while ago, and kind of like was at a standstill, like a lot of people were during the last year.
Right.
And then she, the developer sees how, we are still growing as a city and we're moving forward. We've got a lot of great projects going on. And so she decided to, continue her investment in Marine City. And so retail on the bottom, second floor 4 condos, third floor 4 condos. So that's pretty nice for our tax roll.
Yeah. Anytime you get any kind of new development, it brings more of a tax funds to your city. So more development does bring in more tax revenue, and more tax revenue allows the city to invest into projects, their roads, more staffing to help with everything that needs to get done, more police, full-time fire authority. So all of those things are impacted. If you have more money to do, whether it's for a city or even your own household, you're probably going to do more with it. So yeah, it's great. I came into the city in 2019, so I wasn't here when they've had large growth in the last prior years to that. But I think it's great. And actually speaks a lot about the community that so many people are interested in bringing their business or bringing their family or bringing their development projects. It's a great thing. Something that I've heard from the residents that we are looking to tackle, however, in that regard, is our rental program. I think that the residents do see a need for a better ran rental program to address some of their concerns, to make sure that the properties are being upkeep properly, which I know you and I have rentals, and you don't always like the rental inspector, but they're there to do a job, and they're there to make your.
I would gladly welcome them.
Yes. But you don't always.
Make sure that we're up to snuff.
You don't always like their feedback, but the reality is they're there to make sure that your property that you own is safe. Now, and it's for your it being your asset, but also for the people that are going to be living in there. You want them to live in good quality conditions. So that's something we also just addressed in the budget workshop, is how we're going to tackle that better.
Yeah. And I think that's a good program that needs to be initiated again, you know. And we had mentioned that in the last commission meeting, where, you know, if we had a full-time or even a part-time, what was it, a permit clerk?
I think
Clerk.
permit clerk.
Something like that, you know.
Yeah.
So, so just so everybody in TV land knows, so how many rentals do we have? What's the percentage? Isn't it like in the 30s?
I don't know the percentage wise. I know we have a few hundred rentals.
Right.
So my last knowledge of it was maybe somewhere around 200 or 300 different rentals. Do I think that number is going to grow? Absolutely, because you have Airbnb, which is so popular. It's not even here's a 1 month lease or 6 month or a year, which is most common. It's here, come stay in my house for, you know, a night or a week, you know, and it's growing in popularity everywhere. It's booming. So I think the rental program, not even just here's an apartment that, you know, so-and-so rents for a year. It's here's a place to come and stay and enjoy yourself in a community that's booming and has a lot of different features that you get to enjoy. And it's, I think even for those reasons why we got to revisit that area, make sure we're addressing it as best we can.
Yeah. So with those, you know, let's say a couple hundred, you know, so everybody pays a yearly fee.
Yes.
All the landlords pay a yearly fee. Our permit clerk, inspector, goes in, makes sure that everything is up to code.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
There's no gutters falling, and, you
Right.
know, because, you know, unfortunately, you know, not everybody is picky. Like
Right.
you and I, with what our rentals look like, and, you know,
And the code's always changing.
the code is changing.
So what might have worked for you 3 years ago when you rented it out is now not in compliance any longer.
Right.
Because it's a safety hazard of some kind. And you don't know about it. So it's good to have these rental inspectors come in to look at everything again for both sides of the rental agreement, for the landlord and the tenant. The tenant needs to be safe, their family needs to be in a secure environment, and the landlord should want to make sure their property isn't going to catch on fire, or is, you know, not going to have any other kind of serious hazard that's going to hurt someone, that is going to be a significant liability to them.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to have.
Yeah. And, you know, and along with that, because we were talking about, you know, DPW hiring somebody, and the city inspection, you know, we're going to be hiring somebody, a full-time and a part-timer, you know, and that also helps with blight.
Yes.
Right? Somebody actually, if you report blight, that
Right.
somebody will actually look at that property and, you know, start issuing some citations and
Right.
violations, and, you know, because that's good for the whole community.
Absolutely. Everyone wants their property to be, you know, well kept, and their neighborhood to look nice.
Yeah. You had mentioned, I'm digressing just a little bit, the DPW hiring somebody. Do you know what the qualifications would be and where they would apply?
Well, they will apply to City Hall for any of the other open positions. The position can't be filled until July 1st. So they haven't put together the application packet for it yet. So I would imagine, I know the gentlemen that we have working with us now, some of them have S2 water licenses, S4 water licenses. So I think if you have anything along those lines, then you probably would be a stronger candidate for sure. But what exactly he's going to look for beyond that, I don't know. know. That would be Mike.
Yeah. Well, at least we know that it's coming.
It's
right?
coming.
Yep. Anything we need to know about the current budget that we haven't discussed? Because many eyes go on that budget. I just want everybody out there to know that it's not just you, right, and the city manager,
right.
You know, I mean,
It's
I always say when it comes to the budget, you know, I rely on the professionals. You know, in city commission, you know, we all look at everything.
Right.
Every commissioner looks at the packet that we get.
Right.
If we have questions, we're calling the city manager.
Yeah.
You know, if she doesn't know the answer, she'll get us the answer. So when we come into our city commission meeting, you know, pretty much we're ready to vote and,
Right.
you know, maybe express an opinion or maybe ask a question, but we kind of know where we're going.
Yeah.
You know, we all care about our citizens.
Yes.
We all care about taxes.
Yes.
You know, so, you know, when it came to the budget, which is, you know, my forte, I leave it up to the professionals because it's you.
Yeah.
It's the city manager. Who
It's
else
all
has
the department heads.
all the department
Yes.
heads?
So how we start our budget process is we meet individually. We, being the city manager, meets with each department head individually and goes through what any kind of needs they might have for their department, or things that they say, we're not going to need as much money for, you know, this specific line item. So she meets with them individually. She also goes through something that people don't realize that happens behind the scenes. It's not just, here's how much I need for office supplies this year. It's also very, very detailed into, here's my 1-year capital plan, 5-year, 10-year, for what kind of money that the city is going to need for each of their buildings, for each of their parks, for their police cars, for their DPW pieces of equipment. They look at everything. It's not just, oh, here's what we need in the upcoming year. It's, okay, well, here's what we need on about a 10-year forecast for where we think things are going to be longevity-wise. So we think this tractor might last for, you know, 5 years longer. Sometimes they're usually pretty spot on for what they need. But a lot of times they've been actually able to make their equipment last longer, which has been helpful to the city because we give them money to keep up with repairs. We're very diligent about, if you need to fix something, don't put it off, fix it. Go out and get it, and it makes our equipment and our vehicles last a lot longer than they would. So it goes through the department heads, it goes to the city manager. The city manager makes her recommendations based off all those conversations to the commission. And the commission does 1, 2, 3 days of workshops. It's varied year to year. This year we did it in one, which was great because I think we kind of consolidated everything from the very beginning. So it was, and they also had 3 weeks to look at it before we even met.
Right.
So that's a long time.
We did have a long time.
Yes.
I mean, I don't want anybody to think that, you know, that we are just getting that budget packet a week in advance.
No.
I mean, we've had that for a long time. 3 weeks is a long time.
Yeah, I think they got on April 1st and we met on the 19th, or so 2.5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
They could ask questions in those 2.5 weeks to the city manager, like you said, and I think some did reach out and clarified anything that they needed more elaboration on. And by the time we got there, like you said, pretty much everyone knew where they were going to go, what if they agreed with the way that the city was being steered, and made their votes.
And what does McBride and Manley do, the accounting firm?
So they're a team of professional forensic accountants. So they come in.
Forensic accountants. It sounds so, you know.
Well, they are. They're very intelligent. I probably work with them the most, and I have such respect for them. You have to have an independent relationship of one another because they are looking at the city's financials and making sure everything is factual and every penny is accounted for. They come in and do one audit a year, which is split amongst 2 visits. So one audit, but they come in usually around July and August, and then they come back September to October. And they scrutinize every process, every procedure, and that's their job.
That's their job.
They come in with 5 or 6 different people, and they put together a very lengthy report telling you about our policies, our procedures, if everything was accounted for properly, where they think any changes need to be, or any concerns that they might have. What I really appreciate about my relationship with them is that if I do have something that I am concerned about throughout the year, or any kind of questions that I might have, they do make themselves available, again, as independent as we can be from one another, to help me out, to make sure that, you know, here's their take on the changes, which has been really important for this year because we've all been working through a year of uncertainty, especially with finances of, COVID and where grants are coming from and how to report these and the requirements. So I very much appreciate the help that they will give.
Yeah.
And they're just great.
And they're right here in our city.
They're right here in our city. Yeah.
You could walk. You could walk over there.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
So two things. I don't know if anybody saw on the city's website. We do have a Facebook page that is under the City of Marine City, where we put out any kind of good information or information we feel is pertinent for everybody to know. And one of them is we do contract out our garbage, and you pay for that on your tax bill. If you don't see a assessment for refuse on your tax bill, you're not paying for that service. And the people that generally don't pay for that are if you're in a commercial building or if you're in a multi-unit complex. You have to contract out your own garbage. The city, unfortunately, we don't have an agreement with our current provider to do that kind of service. So we went into it a lot. I think our current company was being very courteous and picking up garbage for the last couple of months with everything going on. But now that things are coming back to more normal, they're saying, okay, if they don't pay for it, unfortunately, we're not going to pick it up anymore, and they're going to have to contract out.
Right.
So if you're unsure, you can always call the office, or again, look at your tax bill. If you don't see refuse on your summer tax bill, you don't pay for any kind of garbage collection. Other thing, as you mentioned, we are going to be moving in the next couple of months. So I suspect it's going to be a good move. I think there probably could be some kinks in, getting
Always
everything
is.
first set up.
Always
so
is.
bear with them trying to, get the phones readily available right away and getting all of our equipment transferred over. So there might be a little bit of a few days of moving and adjustment period, but
little hiccups.
Right. Bear with us.
Little hiccups.
The overall big picture will be a much more beautiful and better city hall that everybody could come to and do all their services in one.
Yeah, I mean the ease alone of the accessibility ease, I think is going to be, so well worth it. Getting off, because there are times where I just have a quick question. I got to run in and talk to city manager, or drop something off, and it's like, I can't park. I'm parking way, 2 blocks away. Not that I mind, but that's me though.
In the snow, I don't want to be walking 2 blocks away.
But I worry about our elderly citizens, and it's going to be very nice having our own parking lot and our own space, and that drop box is huge.
The only other thing I would mention is that I think both of us have worked in a lot of different roles. We've worked with a lot of different people, and I have to genuinely say that I work with some of the most good-hearted, hardworking people I've ever worked with.
That's good to know.
I have an accounting assistant. Her name is Kathy. She handles so much in that office. She handles our accounts payable. She works with families on, the cemetery situations, whether they need burials or cremations, and she's very sensitive and caring and handling out those obligations. She works with our local funeral homes with it. She works on a lot of things, and I'm so appreciative that I get her to myself. I get to claim her. I would very much, and I think most people know Kathy very well. But again, it's not just her. The city as a whole and the people I work with are, I feel, very well respected and do their due diligence to really make sure that they're completing their jobs the best they can and keeping a good relationship with residents, which is really important.
That's very important.
So, and the commission, you know, because you even as a mayor or a city commission member are really the stewards of the city. You're speaking for your residents. So I think it's a respected dynamic between everyone, and I think everyone works hard and they have really good interests at heart. So I would throw that out there that I'm very proud to work with everyone.
Yeah. I've never had an issue. I've gone in there, like I said, this is all new to me. I say it all the time. And if I have to have questions, I mean, anybody will answer, and they'll all help.
Right.
They truly, it's a very helpful group.
Right.
The city manager is spearheading everything well, and I think that too many times we hear think negativity, but I think that we have a very positive group in our city offices, and that's a good thing.
And with our residents.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know a lot of people that will come in and they've known Mike for many years. They've known Jim for many years, who are our superintendent and our police chief. They've known Chris, who's our city clerk. She worked at the police department before she came in, and worked so hard during the elections with such a level of scrutiny that I don't think has been seen in recent years, and always came to work in a positive spirit, ready to tackle on whatever needed to be, with keeping everything as accurate as humanely possible.
Right.
Answered questions that any of the residents have, because again, there was a lot of questions for them too. There was a lot of changes.
Yeah.
So it's them, and it's also there are commissioners that have been on there for several years that I think also they foster that relationship with the residents too, by having a good rapport with the city administration. So it works out great.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Well, I hope that we answered questions not only for Marine City, but for any of the local communities. I mean,
right.
Bills are bills, water bills, taxes, whatever. So I really appreciate you coming in and talking. You actually answered a few questions for me, and that's huge.
If anyone has any questions that, or if this opens up the door to some questions that they have, I'm completely open to somebody calling our office. Yeah, it's 810-765-8846 is our phone number. You can call, you can speak to any of the department heads directly, myself included. If there's something that this has brought up a concern to you, or it's brought up something that you want further clarification on, give us a call. If we don't know it offhand by the person who answers that call, we'll get the information for you.
Yeah. I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks so much.
All right, we're wrapping up. So my name is Cheryl Vercammen. I'm the mayor of Marine City. This is